I just came home in my little apartment. My dad was there, and I just kind of teared up and got emotional just because, right, like everything that I've known just felt like it was all crumbling and, not what I needed to do.
Welcome to CBN Sports One-on-One, where you'll hear exclusive interviews with some of the biggest names in sports right here on the CBN Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Will Dawson. If you're like most of us and you love sports, but you're tired of the dark side of sports culture, me-focused athletes, or even organizations that bow to an unbiblical belief system, you're going to love this podcast. There's no yelling, no sensationalism, just conversations with athletes and coaches that recognize that their purpose is bigger than their sport. This week, our guest is Rams first-round pick quarterback Ty Simpson. I sat down with Ty in Tuscaloosa during his final season in Alabama, and Ty talks about his football crisis, his dependence on Christ, and how much playing time in the NFL is really going to mean to him. Let's jump right in.
So let's talk about your high school days before you came to Alabama. You had success essentially at every level, didn't you?
I mean, I guess you could say that, right? Like, I started playing football when I was in fourth grade. My dad being a coach, he didn't want me to start too early, so fourth grade was it. It was kind of peewee ball. Middle school, kind of just out there, and then I didn't, win a state championship till I was a senior in high school. It was the first time my school's ever done it. So it was pretty cool. I knew I was, talented, but I didn't really know. And then, I had an opportunity to go here, and, just kind of blessed and highly favored.
Well, you were highly recruited, highly regarded in high school. I would say probably your junior year, is that when the rankings come out and you're like top 3 in the nation as far as pro style passer?
I guess so. I wasn't really sure.
So that's not really something that you paid attention to?
Yeah, I mean, I guess people would tell me or whatever, but I knew none of it really mattered until you got to college. You see the stories all the time about how nobody recruited so and so, or this guy was however many stars coming out. So I knew, especially coming here, right? That stuff didn't matter at all.
I've talked to a lot of quarterbacks in the past. We were talking about Brock Vandegrift, and he had won a couple of state championships, and he told me that he was kind of believing the hype in high school, and that in high school it was a little difficult being the man. You were the man in high school. Did you have any issues like that?
I think it was more of the fact of me being a small town kid and going to a small town school, of not knowing what's outside of it. Because I knew I was the best player, at my school and, in my county or whatever, in my district, but I didn't know, outside. I knew it had potential, right? But nothing, told me this was going to work out, the way that you saw it. So, I just kind of always put my head down. And it was just just got to find a way to get better.
So you get recruited by Alabama, but before that, let's talk about growing up. Were you raised in a Christian home?
Yeah, so growing up always, right? My mom and dad, we went to church every Sunday, would go to church on Wednesday nights. My dad was a deacon. My mom's mom and dad, we went to church when, we went to go visit them. Same thing with my dad's mom and dad, just kind of was always, around me. And then being with my dad at his college with his team, right? Head college football coach at UT Martin. Just seeing the way that he kind of preached the gospel with his team and his players was really cool. So I've always been a part of it.
Was there a moment then that you felt like, I'm not living the way in high school, that I'm not living the way that I should be, and I need to give my life to Christ? Or is that something that's always kind of been part of your life?
It's always been kind of part of my life, just because I've always had, somebody there to guide me in a type of way. Just because, right, I was living with my mom and dad. It was just a routine, right? Sundays I'd go to church, right? Wednesday nights, if it wasn't during football season, go hang out with the boys at church. But it really, when I got to college, that was when it kind of changed for me, right? Because I was on my own. It was all my time. I could either sleep in and not go to church, or get up and go by myself, not having anybody there. And it really hit me my sophomore year when the first time I had a quarterback battle. It was because, right, I kind of saw myself as a certain type of figure, and that was just football, right? Everybody who knew me was just like Ty Simpson, the quarterback, Ty Simpson, the Alabama football player, Ty Simpson, the guy who went to Alabama. And so, I kind of envisioned it going, one way. And then, when I was battling for the starting position my sophomore year, it really wasn't going the way that I envisioned it. And, I was just kind of, upset, not understanding what's going on, wasn't playing well. And after a scrimmage one day, didn't really go my way. And I just came home in my little apartment. My dad was there, and I just kind of teared up and got emotional just because, right, like everything that I've known just felt like it was all crumbling and, not what I needed to do. And, my dad being a dad, a coach, whatever, he didn't ask me about, are you okay? He didn't ask me, well, you got to suck it up, or he didn't just tell me like, no, you're doing this and this bad. He just basically just asked me like, how's your faith, right? Like how, are you in the word? Are you going up in the church, or are you, constantly like, praying and, asking for guidance and stuff? And it really kind of opened my eyes, because I was like, no, I'm not. Like, I wasn't, I was more focused on how people saw me as a football player and how people perceived me as an athlete, instead of how people saw me as a Christian and a person. And kind of put my problems on myself, and, living a type of way that like I knew was wrong, but it was the one that I wanted to do. Um, and after that, I kind of was just like a sigh of relief, right? Like, that night I just kind of sat back and, realized, like, remembered all the time that I did, spent at church when I was a little kid, and all the great, the great times, and, the testimonies that I heard, and the athletes that, I kind of look up to. And I just, kind of just prayed, and just a big sigh of relief was off my shoulders. No anxiety, just, it felt free, honestly.
So that enabled you then to go out and play free after that? Did things change for you?
Yeah, it just gave me a different perspective of like, kind of not caring, right? Like, you know, why would I why would I be upset of how people looked at me or how I played, when knowing that like there's such a bigger purpose, you know what I mean? Where football is not end of the world. That, I could throw, however many picks and, do whatever. But as long as I believe like I'm gonna be all right.
How important is your relationship with your dad? Is he like a spiritual mentor for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Him and my mom for sure. Of course, my dad always sends me scriptures. Literally every morning. I could show you my phone. It's probably like six tweets or pictures every morning of just like scriptures and motivational context. Just because of, the world that he works in and lives in is, very similar to mine, and how, we can kind of get lost in all the noise, and all the distractions, instead of keeping the main thing the main thing.
When you were battling your sophomore year for that starting position, and you realized, was there something specific that was happening, and how dark did it get for you?
It just I have so much fun playing football, and just enjoying being around the guys, and enjoying, just competing in general, right? But I'm very, very hard on myself, because I have a high standard, and want to, compete at a high level. And it just kind of weighed down on me for a long time. And it just got no fun. Honestly, right? Like I just dreaded coming into the building every day, like, going to practice, going to meetings, because it just wasn't very fun to me. And then, like I said, like I had that moment and I got my joy back, because I just, knew that like this is just a game, there's a bigger picture, and there's a reason why I'm playing this game. It's not just because, oh, I'm good, and whatever. Like there's a reason why it's working out the way it's working out, and it's, not up to me.
What is that reason?
To, use my platform to, give the glory to the Lord. We say this all the time. I want people to see me more as a Christian than a football player.
How do you handle adversity this season as the starter, as the full-time starter? How have you handled adversity?
Yeah, I mean, it's been hard, right? Just because I hadn't been there before. But, you can't have a bad day knowing that, Jesus Christ died for you. My dad tells that to me all the time, right? Like, sun's still gonna come up, right? Like, think about all the people in the world who are, hurt, sick, on their deathbed, right? Like, you get to play football and, you have an opportunity to, write your own story. And that's just kind of how I look at it, right? Like, adversity brings opportunity, and, this is a great opportunity for me to, play for a bigger cause.
It's a really mature perspective. How, I guess, what does your relationship on a day-to-day basis with Jesus mean to you? I guess in light of and knowing all that he's done for you, not just in giving you the abilities that he's given you, but just the gospel itself, knowing that he's died for your sins.
Yeah, I say my favorite verse is Micah 5:5, just because of all the anxiety and everything that you kind of go through on a day-to-day basis at a high intensity thing like we have here, just because of all the competitiveness, the distractions, the stress, right? Like, every morning I get up, I read my devotional, then I pray before I go in to the building, and then I pray before I go to sleep at night, just because, one, right, like, he can instantly take this away, but he's giving me this platform to glorify him. But two, right, like, when you care about something so much and you're very passionate about it, like when you talk about something and, you have that kind of, good feeling, that it just kind of, gets the anxiety and the relief off of you. So whenever I get to, in a big time situation, right, whether it's, playing in Athens or fourth down, against Missouri, right, like, kind of anxiety free, knowing that I can just say a little prayer and, like, that he's with me no matter what.
You're the leader of the football team, at least the offense. When you think about other guys and the things that they go through, since you're going through the same things, anxieties, are you also a spiritual leader, at least to some other guys on the team?
Yeah, absolutely, right? Like, I try to give my perspective on everything of, whether guys are going through, some type of adversity that I've been through before, or stuff that, I don't, know about, or I have, no, relationship about, or correlation with. I either tell them like, hey, this is what I did, or, even a simple like, hey, I'm praying for you, man. I just feel like that goes a long way. And then, somebody's like, man, that means a lot, especially coming from the starting quarterback.
You seem like a guy who, well, like we talk about, just keeps your head down and goes on to the next thing one day at a time. And that's a great way to live the Christian life. I mean, it's a great way to go from high school to a big time program like Alabama. 5 years from now, I know that you hope that you're doing God's will, whatever that is. What would it mean for you to be a high pick in the NFL and be excelling at a high level in the league?
Yeah, I mean, it would be great, right? One, the story that, he's kind of written for me. But two, right, like nothing changes on my end. I'm still going to be doing what, I think is right, and I think that I'm here for, and that's to, play football, and give all the glory to him. We talk about, a lot here, especially at University of Alabama, about, being bigger than yourself, and doing stuff to, glorify and send a message to others for him. And what better example than to do it, at a professional level.
What a great young man. Ty was reportedly offered $6.5 million to come back to college and transfer to Miami, and he'll actually make just a little less than $6 million guaranteed in his first season with the Rams. But the guy's a competitor, and what a great spot Sean McVay's Rams offense is for Ty. We will be praying for him, we'll be cheering for him, hope you do too. This has been CBN Sports One-on-One. Please like and subscribe, and while you're there, leave us a review. Our goal is to reach the world with the gospel, and what better way than the platform of sports. God bless you.